Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, number one and number two at FBI, sat down with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend. We talked about it a bit yesterday. Some real bad news for the conspiracy theorists among us. I hope David Kolsak's listening. Cash and Bongino said,
What?
Epstein? Suicide.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Did the deep state get to Cash and Dan? But on a more important matter, I'm not so worried about the cause of death of Epstein anymore. I stipulate it's suicide. I'm more worried about the files. That's what I was interested in, where these files. So Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had this international sex trafficking ring, and those are the only two that got arrested. They had no clients? How's that? That's the thing that's curious to me. With respect to assassinations, the two assassination attempts on President Trump last year, you know, Maria Bartiromo expressing the frustration a lot of us feel. Maybe it's unfair, expecting too much too fast from people who have just secured these top posts in the FBI. But she was pressing them. Why don't we have more information about those assassination attempts?
But how come we don't have more information on the assassination attempts on President Trump?
There's two reasons, two open, ongoing prosecutions. So two of the investigations are obviously closed because the individuals are dead, but there's two live prosecutions, and so we can't get ahead of the federal court case. A lot of that information will come out in the federal court cases, but we have personally invested our time in making sure that we have looked at any possible international connections to terrorism and adversaries alike. And we've both been down to Quantico. We've both done the laboratory testing. We've both seen the explosives analysis. We've both seen the firearm and physically held it. We are all in on these investigations.
Are we going to be surprised at what you learned?
You know what, Maria? Cash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent, and my personal friendship, as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. In some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there. And I know people, I get it. I understand. It's not there.
Is the there? No, there is no there. Got it. Susan Crabtree is a RealClearPolitics.com national political correspondent and co-author of Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's great to be with you again. Thanks so much for having me.
So you've covered Secret Service for a long time. Were you satisfied with that response from Cash and Bongino to Bartiromo?
No, because they were talking about that Ryan Ruth, he's the Florida would-be shooter, would-be assassin on the golf course. That case is pending. Okay, so you can't talk about that case. But the Thomas Crooks case, he is deceased, and we still don't know a lot about him. Now, if you're saying that there's no there, then tell us why. what's in the content of those foreign encrypted applications that he used and why did he have foreign encrypted applications? They should have had a press conference on that subject alone. If the guy is deceased and they can, there's no there, then tell me what was on his encrypted apps that were foreign. Because everybody knows about Signal now. That is a domestic application. Most people use that, journalists included, to communicate privately with other people. Well, you want the communications to be secure. But that is a domestic application. Why did he have foreign encrypted applications on his phone?
So on his phone, did he or did he not, and I might have heard this or read this incorrectly, 29 different contacts on that encrypted app?
Correct.
And who were those people? What entities?
Exactly. Also, so maybe they are going to provide that information. But the FBI, before Trump was elected, only had one briefing with reporters, and they were not calling on a lot of reporters like myself in that briefing, and it was very limited what we could ask. So I still want to know. We still don't know who his contacts were in school. We still don't know a lot about him. He was making bombs in his house. Why didn't his parents know about that? We haven't had any information about Thomas Crooks. We've had a ton of information about Ryan Ruth because it was in the public sphere. He was engaged. He was very engaged in social media. But Thomas Crooks had a Gab account, and that was discussed during a congressional hearing, and there was conversations about whether he talked about bad things about Donald Trump and Joe Biden and anti-immigration. So why don't we know a little bit more about that Gab account and all of the postings he put on it? I want to see a list of all the postings. I want to see documentary evidence. I just thought that was very cursory what they talked about, both Patel, and they should have already had a press briefing, and not just the FBI. I blame Congress too. They are completely dropping the ball when it comes to Secret Service oversight. We know for a fact, I reported that Acting Director Ron Rowe, who said he was retiring in February, is still on the Secret Service payroll, listed as a senior advisor in the payroll system. And we don't know why he's still there, and they will not tell me. I mean, maybe he took a Doge payout. Maybe he's using up all of his retirement,
earned time,
pay and vacation pay. Just tell me. And I asked the members of Congress who are supposed to have oversight over this, and they said, we privately, they won't go on the record. Well, we asked him, and we don't have the answers for you. They wouldn't tell us. That is not sufficient.
And to your knowledge, I assume the Secret Service is concluded whatever investigation they did of the Butler, Pennsylvania shooter at this point, right? That's concluded. They're not still actively investigating what happened.
Well, they're not investigating the shooter. That's the FBI's job. They have a mission.
But the incident, right?
Yeah, they have their own mission assurance report. Because what they did, they classified it.
Right.
So that regular members of Congress that are not on the Intelligence Committee can't get a hold of that. Even the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General's office cannot get a hold of it because it's classified.
Right. So,
on purpose.
We spoke shortly after the Butler assassination attempt. We spoke to the former Secret Service officer who was the point on the failed Hinckley assassination attempt against Reagan. And he talked about, here's what they should do. And I think he wrote an op-ed in the Journal about it too. You probably saw it. But, here's what we did. We got in there. We poured over all of Hinckley's possessions. We tried to understand what happened and put together sort of a plausible timeline motivation, understanding of the events of that day and leading up to that day as we could, and get that into the public domain for consideration as quickly as possible, as responsibly, but as quickly as possible. So, if people wanted to poke holes in it, ask questions, maybe come up with something that we didn't think about, we hadn't contemplated, fine. But at least we were going to put something out there that was cogent work product, that was sort of the best understanding we had, given imperfect information, and then let's build on it from there so that you engage the public, you and inspire confidence that you have a government that is being responsive to you and on the level with you. And of course, now we've just done the opposite thing again.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if this is just as the culture, and it's only 3.5, 4 months in, but this is just the culture and the inertia moving against any sort of transparency and responsiveness and accountability is more substantial than maybe even some in Trump world have understood to this point.
Yes, no, I think that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have only been on the job, and they have to get their daily briefings, and they talked about that in the interview, that deal with immediate issues that they're facing every day. So I understand that they need to say, we are going to be having a press conference where all of this will unfold in front of you. We will discuss the Thomas Crooks profile. We will discuss what he was doing on his apps. That needs to be released. I don't know if there's some kind of liability they're worried about, but they need to address this. And it's just fueling more conspiracy theories not to do so. I apologize for my voice. I've had a cold for the last week.
Oh, it's all right.
But it's just, to me, I do have faith that they are going to provide more transparency than the last administration on this issue, but it hasn't happened yet, and they need to say, we have a timeline to do so, and Congress needs to step it up. There's Homeland Security committees that have oversight. They have had 0 oversight hearings on the Secret Service. Are we supposed to trust that the Secret Service is reformed from what we saw last year? Instantly reformed when they're having recruiting problems and retention problems? And I'm hearing that agents are just headed for the exit doors en masse because they are so fed up with the low morale, and the workload has not changed because J.D. Vance is much more active, and there's a bigger Trump family than they had with even the Biden family. Mm-hmm. So their workload, they complain constantly, and there's agents that are just they're posting on Facebook what the problems are in the Secret Service. Meanwhile, we have Sean Curran, the new director, creating more, and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, they're creating more and more of these recruiting videos, and they spent millions on the recruiting video at the Super Bowl that didn't even air during the Super Bowl. They recruited a Hollywood producer, a very well-known Hollywood producer, to make that for millions of dollars, and they have a huge recruiting problem. And they didn't even air it. That's what they're spending their money on. They're not announcing it in reforms. And a lot of the agents are extremely frustrated. There's actually, I'm going to be writing about it this week, a change.org petition calling on Sean Curran to announce reforms in the Secret Service, pressing him to do so or have him removed as well.
The other overture that Kash and Bongino made in that sit-down with Bartiromo was to more documents that will be released in the next week or two related to, I guess, the Russian collusion hoax. Is that... I don't know. I was sort of underwhelmed. It felt like it was a bit of a misdirection play. We can't really provide you the answers you want on these topics, but we've got this coming for you to look forward to. And I suspect that will just be more documentation of what we already know to be true. That doesn't provide any avenue for any additional accountabilities, and will be left wanting after, this latest trove of documents related to that episode are revealed.
Yeah. I am concerned about that too. But they do need to just start laying out. If I will, it's a lot to learn. It's a huge learning curve when you get in there, and you have these briefings every morning about the immediate threats. And certainly, you don't want to take them off the eye off the ball. Of their main mission is counterterrorism, and they did talk about the bad guys that are involved in human trafficking and any kind of exploitation of children, and they were going to get a knock on the door, Dan Bongino said, and it's not going to be Amazon. I do feel like they're trying to stay on top of all of the keep our country safe while they deal with these other outstanding issues. So all I want to know is, where's the timeline that you are going to lay out, bring the transparency that you promised. Mm-hmm. All I need is think, okay, so you're going to do this in next month, and then you're going to provide. They need to have some accountability there as well. People are concerned that Donald Trump is not safe. There's been no change in the Secret Service. People have been dying for transparency on the Russian hoax issue for years, and so I give them a little bit of some leeway to say, we are drinking from a fire hose here. Yeah. We're trying to keep the country safe. But yes, we do need to lay out a timeline for you so that we can address all of these concerns that the American people have had for years, and certainly for months with the Trump assassination.
Well, the other problem they have that may be unanticipated is they have to keep track of a former FBI director who may pose a security threat too, apparently, when he peruses the waterfront with his wife.
Those seashells.
Yeah, and I mean, that was pretty unbelievable for a former FBI director. And now it's inciting other people to post this. So there's no excuse for him not knowing what 86 means. He writes crime novels. He's a former FBI director, and he writes crime novels. I don't know. I think that this was pretty egregious. I'm not sure if it was. His book is coming out on May 20th. His next fiction novel, crime novel.
It's today.
I'm sure it had something to do. That's today, yeah. And I'm sure it had something to do with publicity for that. I have my own book out. We're all being pressured by the publisher constantly to do more publicity. So,
well, why don't you go put some shells together on the sand, Susan?
Yeah, why don't you go
Come on, find some artistic things, clever shells found on the sand.
Yeah, you just have to, just go threaten the life of a public figure, and they'll get you some attention.
I mean, this just shows me that there's a judgment problem, that he's had a judgment problem for years. I knew it when he first came out, and because I had been I've been working on launching FBI investigations for members of Congress and political figures. That's what I did for a living. I was an ethics reporter for the Hill newspaper for many years. And we knew that the FBI could not discuss anything about an FBI investigation about 3 to 6 months before an election and 3 to 6 months afterward. That was always the norm. And then he discussed openly and had a press conference about the Hillary Clinton issue, which the Republicans like, and then he flip-flopped the other way when he didn't prosecute it. So it's just he showed poor judgment many times in his life. He was part of that very dramatic moment when he went to Attorney General Ashcroft's side, and when Ashcroft was under George Bush as Attorney General, he was suffering afterward from a gallbladder surgery, and he came to him and said, "You must do something right now about this domestic surveillance law that needs to be re-upped. We cannot be living in this situation." And he and Alberto Gonzalez, that was a moment. I mean, they could have waited a few weeks. It just showed to me that he has been a figure that has constantly shown poor judgment over many instances in his life. And it's just one thing that I just couldn't, that's just one example of many that comes to mind.
Poor judgment that is always in the direction of exposing him to to the larger public. I mean, it seems to me he was always looking for ways to build his public profile and associated status. That's what it seems to be. Those
Exactly.
poor judgments are always in that direction. Susan Crabtree is the RealClearPolitics.com national political correspondent. She's also the co-author of Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Fool's Gold is the book. Susan Crabtree is the author. Susan, thanks as always.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Are you an administrator, staff member, or parent volunteer at a private school? Would you like to grow your current enrollment and welcome new families to your school? If so, we want to tell you about a